Hey, welcome back to another exciting week of YOML, a year of magical learning. And today, the first of the week is we have a three-part series, right, Chris? Book 144,
It
part one
is.
of three, and we want to talk about what Will Smith want to talk about.
This was the first book that when I first started writing all these reflections, I gave myself the rule that I don't know why. It's like I gave myself a rule. I was like, you could write one reflection per book, or except for your top five favorites, you can write up to five. And I was like, that was the rule that I gave myself when I started this thing out, because I was like, I knew there was at least five books that I'd already read that I was like, man, there's just way too much I want to say about these books. So like I gave myself a little bit of permission to do that. So I had that all planned out. I was like, one book,
Yeah,
one
don't
reflection.
ask for permission. Ask
Right.
for forgiveness.
Exactly. So I ironically I get to Will Smith's book, and I don't know why. It was a really good book. I really loved it, and for whatever reason I had a lot going on in my mind when I after I got done with it, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna break the rules. I'm gonna write three reflections for this one. And I was like, man, and then it opened the floodgates after that. So you'll start to see as this journey goes on, there'll be a lot more
It
books.
doesn't matter. All we want
reflections.
is what can we learn from you today?
Exactly. It wasn't just about like, I'm glad that I did that too, because there was so many other things that
Yeah, I
I've learned
mean,
and applied.
you're skimming out on us with
Right, yeah.
all those nuggets of informations, that could help us with our lives and whatnot.
Exactly. So today's reflection for Will Smith's book, his autobiography, is it's called Method Acting. So here goes. So the book, if in case you don't, I guess we've lived under a cave, or rock for your entire life. Will Smith is a one of the biggest Hollywood stars in the world, slash an amazing rapper, slash TV icon with Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, slash producer of movies, and his kids both are pretty famous, and he has a famous wife named
Jada,
who is also a famous actress. Like, they're basically like Hollywood power couple kind of people. I mean, if you don't know who Will Smith is, then I don't know like what's wrong with you. But
it doesn't matter. All we want to know is what has he uncovered the diamond and rough, and just give to us polish, and then we'll take it and we'll use it for our lives.
Yeah, for sure. So this book's all about his life, right? From birth until to present day. He actually just finished this just a few months. His book was released like 2 months before the whole Oscars slap thing, which was kind of funny because I felt like I finished it before that whole Oscar slap thing happened. So I had a whole different take on that whole entire experience, because like listening to his book and then going through this whole entire thing, I kind of actually knew where that came from, and I felt kind of bad for him, honestly, just because he's got a lot of going on in his head right now of trying to shift his own life. So something that you could just see that he was competing with himself. There's a lot going on in that brain up there. So I hope he figures it out, because he's a really good guy and I really enjoyed his book. So anyway, on to the reflection. So this reflection title is called Method Acting. This is actually, just a quick note, another book that Felicia and I did together, and just kind of fun backstory on how this one came to be. Every book that we had done up until this one together was like, maybe like they've all been audiobooks, because you got to listen to them together. So they were maybe like 5-7 hours max or something like that, audiobooks. Like I think maybe we did one that was like 10 hours, and it felt like it took forever, because we only would ever listen to them on walks together, which we would take every night, but it was only like 20-30 minutes with the kids or whatever. So it took a while. It always would take like 3 or 4 weeks before we would finish any book. So she comes to me and she's like, hey, I really want to do Will Smith's book, and I go, as our next book, and I go, okay, sure, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I don't know anything about it. And I was like, why do you want to do that book? And she was like, I don't know, I heard it was really good. So I went to go look at it on Audible, and it was like 16 hours. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, Felicia, like, we can't, like, this will take us like 3 months to finish, and she was like, I don't care, let's check it out. And I was like, fine. So when your wife says to do something, you do it. We had actually ended up finishing this in 2 weeks. We both loved it. Like, it was just like we both she was listening to a book like I listened to a book, where anytime that we could find some free time, you know, we were like, hey, turn on a Will Smith book, you know, or something like that. So it was like Saturday morning breakfast, like let's turn on the Will Smith book. Like it was a really good book. We both really enjoyed it and had a great experience. Now onto the reflection though. So one of the things that I just couldn't get out of my head after listening to this, the first movie that Will Smith ever did, you know, if you don't know, Will Smith was in this really famous TV show called The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So his rap persona was the Fresh Prince. DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince was his rap persona. And the show was pitched to him to become the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So to have this hip hop, you know, dude from West Philadelphia move to Bel-Air and move in with his uncle and his aunt and kind of, you know, poor inner city kid meets rich Bel-Air people was the whole premise of the show. So he had like this persona of this is Will Smith. He was this goofy, funny guy, you know, from the hood, rapper, actor, whatever. He wanted to completely, as he went into Hollywood, he had his mindset on trying to become the biggest Hollywood star that's ever been. That was his goal. Like when he set out to do movies, he was like, I want to be the biggest star, you know, bigger than Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone, whatever. He's like, I want to be the biggest person you could possibly be, action star. So he was like, in order to do that first, he was like, I got to convince people I can act. So he took this role in this movie called 6 Degrees of Separation, which I've never seen it actually. Have you ever seen that movie?
No, I have not.
So he took this movie, this role is this movie called 6 Degrees of Separation. It was like a serious movie. And his role was he chose this role to play this con man named Paul. And this guy's persona was like the exact opposite of Will Smith, the Fresh Prince's persona. He was like, they couldn't be further opposite. So to get into the mindset of being Paul in this movie and to really try to put his heart and soul into it, he decided he was going to test out this method, this type of acting called method acting, where he would like literally pretend to be Paul in his real life for like 6 months or so leading up to the production of the show, and in hopes to like kind of retrain his mind to like, you know, to think Paul, like not Will, I'm Paul, you know, and what would Paul do kind of stuff, right? So he does this and he you know, shoots the movie and he gets the validation that he likes. Everybody's like, wow, he's an amazing actor. Like, I mean, I didn't know Will Smith could do something like that. You know, he ended up like, you know, getting a lot of everything that he wanted to get out of that movie and in terms of exposure from it and experience, he did. So he kind of got his foot into Hollywood and that was his way he got into it. The weird thing was about this whole entire process for him though, when he came back to his real life, back to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air shooting the TV show, he was no longer Will anymore. Like he was like, I kind of had lost myself, and he was like, I didn't see it, but all the castmates and his friends and his wife and everybody that was around him was like, something's wrong with you, bro. Like, you know, like you got to get your mind. And he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just Will, you know, and he could not figure out like Paul was still kind of hanging on to Will, and he was, you know, kind of in this weird spot, right? So as I was hearing this, it started to make me think about this whole entire journey that we've been on together, and that Amelia and I have been on together for this past, you know, 2+ years, right? Like in a lot of ways, you know, it just kind of thought just sparked in my head. I was like, man, I've been kind of method acting myself for the past, you know, ever since the day that Amelia passed away, really. I mean, I purposely took on the persona of Amelia and what she taught me and all of her values and what I watched with my own 2 eyes of the life that she lived and what I saw was a life worth living. And I dedicated my life to that, to being that person, to honor her, to live for 2 and to live my values as much as I possibly could, because that's when I get to spend time with her, as well as honor her life, as well as try to share her life through stories like this, through, you know, the book that I wrote, through all this other stuff. And so much so that we've taken this now for 3 years, and I don't even recognize who I am anymore before I was with Amelia. I mean, before I met Amelia. I mean, I don't mean that in a weird way. Like I literally sometimes don't even recognize the old Chris. Not that I'm like physically look different, not that I, you know, talk differently, not that I whatever. My brain is just different now. Like, I mean, the things that I care about, the things that I do every single day, the purpose that I live my life with, that was all spurred by my daughter and trying to live a life of purpose with her. Like it kind of just dawned on me. I've really been method acting myself for the past couple of years, but the only difference is I don't want this to ever go away. This is what the path that I want to be on, and I'm glad that I've been, that my brain and I method acted, what my daughter taught me, and kind of adopted her values as well, because like it's a way for me to stay connected with her, and it means a lot to me, and it's my purpose in my own life. So that said, the power of just method acting in general, like, the message that I wanted to share, that only happened to me because of the atomic bomb that went off in my life, right? Like, I don't think people need to have that happen. And we talked about this at length in many other reflections in the past. However, like, if you could take the lesson of Will and what he method acted, and how clearly you can retrain your own brain to think differently, to live a life of purpose, to live a life differently, to live a life that you care about, to live a life of values, whatever it may be, whatever that life is, you could do it, and you can do it with help of your friends. You can do it with whatever you want to. Like, don't wait on something else to blow up your life before you make that decision, right? Is kind of the big lesson from this. But method acting is real. Like, pretend who you want to be and go do it, and then you will become that person eventually. So yeah, that's it. Long reflection. Love to get your thoughts. The question was, how can you leverage your values to method act like the person you want to be and impact your life?
Right. I think this just goes back to the concept with the rider and the elephant, right? Because if you train the elephant to behave a certain way, he
Right.
thinks that's what you want, and he will immerse and soak in all of the things that you want him to do, and he will continue to do that as if that's right. So whether you purposely did that or you accidentally did that, he's gonna think that's what you want.
Right.
So in the end, mindset is the number one factor in terms of how your life can turn out. And if you can build a mindset for whatever values that you hold, those values will become part of you.
It will become you.
Right, because you are the values, and the values are you. And so I think method acting is one of the most effective way that I know of to get into that realm. Because a lot of times, because you think about it, you think like Chris in the past before you talk about was the real Chris. You don't know that was the real Chris. That could be someone else's version of Chris, because when you're growing up, you essentially are trying to be somebody expectations of Chris. Whether that's your mom, your dad, your friends, or the TV, society, whatever, they expect Chris to behave a certain way. They expect Chris to be this white guy, you go to college, be fraternity or whatever, act a certain way. You basically get molded by the frame of the values, and whether the values is yours or someone else's, right? And so you're being molded. So the Chris before the atomic bomb is a Chris, but it's not. I couldn't really say that the true version of Chris. The true version of Chris is whoever Chris wants to be, not what other people want to be. So your value is going to determine whether or not that's the true Chris or that's a true, right? And the only way for us to undo what we have been molded into is to take our core values, figure out what kind of role that needs to be fulfilled, and we fill that role, and eventually you will immerse yourself into that role and become that person for real. And so I think that, to me, that's brings me to me a very I guess a positive feeling about how we change ourselves to the person we want to become. A lot of people wants to, but they just don't know how. And I think method acting, brought up by Will Smith, is one of the most effective way that I've seen today. And I totally agree with what you're saying as far as pretending to be Paul and act as if you're him, and eventually your subconscious believes it.
Right.
So a lot of people say, if you lie to yourself long enough, you eventually will believe your own lies. And to me, it sounds true, because if you continue to build the habit and do the things that you do every day, your brains, i.e. your elephant, will think that's what you want and will absorb it and will continue to manifest that kind of behavior. And eventually you don't have to undo it, because it's up to you now to either continue to let the elephant think in that way and become this new role, this new person, or you can change it. And a lot of time, if like you said, you don't want to change, you don't want to go back to the earlier version of Chris. And for certainly, I don't want to be the earlier version of myself, right? Because I think I'm better now than I was before. Because with what I've seen through the lens of clubbing and clubbing member, I see myself as a different person. I immerse myself in different activities, and these activities becomes who I am. What I do becomes like my value of who I am. What I do is who I am, because it's not about me saying, hey, I'm this, I'm that. I just like, if you are judged by your actions, not by what you say. And so in order for you to become somebody, if you're not happy with the way that your life turned out today, and you think what that version of yourself should be, you should start to method act into that role. And eventually, and for Will Smith, now he did that like 2 weeks.
No, I think he did it for like 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, I mean, but it takes time. Actually, I mean, that was time,
but eventually it will.
It does.
But you're talking about like entire lifetime,
right?
Versus the 6 months of, hey, I need to become this other person, right? Whether that's I want to be honest, kind, or rich, or poor, or I'm benevolent or whatever it is that you want, right? You can method act yourself into becoming that person for real. And when you do, and you carry that core value with you, you're gonna like who you are. You're gonna like who you hang out with. You're gonna like the surroundings and your environment.
I don't know exactly when for me that the stuff that I do these days, like I don't need to think about the pain of why I do them anymore. I think, and I don't even really need to think about Amelia a lot of times why I do. I just know that that's why I'm doing it. Like it's like I don't know when that transition happened. I know it's been like that for a long while now. For probably
I mean, we've been doing this for 3 years, so I'm imagining the first 6 months.
I mean, I do feel like it was through a lot of that writing of the original book, the first book, that I feel like, and then the clubbing stuff that we were doing. Honestly, I don't know that I could have gotten to the point in time where I feel today without like you and other people in Clubbing and other people to help support me through, like that's the whole side of the meaningful relationship side of the Clubbing world. But like if you really want method acting to stick, you need people. Like that's the thing is Will Smith. Here's a point I just thought of. Like when Will Smith came back to his real life, as Will, people were like, I don't want Paul around me, and he was like, I don't want to be Paul either. So like that was when it was weird, right? When people were like, hey, go get Will back, and that was, for me, it was so weird to think like, man, who is Will Smith? You know what I mean? Like it's like, wait a minute, I can just go off somewhere and become somebody else. Like it's got to be trippy for an actor, like Heath Ledger and as Joker and Batman. Like I mean, I remember like one of the things that he said, he was like, that thing really screwed up his brain, like really bad, because he really immersed himself into thinking he was a serial killer psycho person, and like really messed up his brain after the shooting was over, and he couldn't kind of get out of that funk. He got really depressed. Like it was really gross and ugly for him. And I don't know, maybe that led to one of the reasons how he ended up where he ended up, and passing away.
He's just too good at it.
Right.
He's just too good at being the Joker.
Right. Yeah.
And
I mean, I really think that
that's the pros and cons, right? Because it messes up with your mind. And to me, that's what I'm saying before. Mindset is everything. If you build a mindset, just because we're talking about this before. If you say I am a writer, right? You think it's yourself a writer, you will write. You will behave as if you're a writer. You will, get up and start to write something. If you claim the role, whatever that role is, you will eventually pick up some of these habits and behaviors of those. And if you want to become the Joker, and Heath Ledger should become he immersed himself too well into that character.
Yeah.
Because of that, he inherited the psychological distress as well.
Mhm.
And I think that's what creates this traumatic, you know, whatever that is that he went through. It's traumatic for him because he's a normal human being. He didn't have the dispositions to control the,
Yeah, it wasn't his values.
right, because
Right,
it goes against his values.
Right.
And so there is an internal conflict for him. But like I said, you know, it's a good way to become who you want to be.
Yes.
If you want to be an actor, right? Well, claim that role. You want to be a writer, claim that role. You want to be a programmer, an entrepreneur, you claim it. You claim that role. So I am an entrepreneur. I am a writer. I am a beaver, right? Once you pretend to be beaver,
You dropped it in there.
you're gonna want a dam. It's
I'm
how
like,
you figure how to build a dam.
we need to have like a little beaver counter, like, you know, in the corner. It's like ding, beaver, get one beaver in the episode. Now I have like 5 beavers that would pop up. Beaver, you know, yeah. Oh, we should totally do that. We should, whenever someday we actually want to edit these things, if we ever do, like, we should totally have like a beaver counter somewhere.
Yeah.
You know.
And then we can do a tally of all the beaver reference throughout all the podcast episodes. Let's see how many did I mention beavers.
What do you think we're at? You think 200 beavers so far?
Probably more.
Yeah.
I mean, how many beaver have we mentioned in this one?
Oh, I mean, shit, we've had 10 beavers already. Like, you know, we're now 11. That's funny. No, I mean, I really do think this is like, don't method act the stuff you don't want to do. But it's funny when you like, I don't want to call living your values method acting. Like the weird thing is like,
but the thing is, like, you're not always at a stage where you have to, because you are already living you are performing another role.
Right.
You're performing a role that was given to you by society.
Correct. You were
right?
method acting before. You're always method acting. Like, we've talked about this in the past. Like, you're either living your values or you're living somebody else's values.
Because
no
if I go to school and I start a fight, right? What do you think happens to me if I start a fight?
I mean, you get kicked out of school.
They say you got to go to detention,
right?
Go to correction, right? Correction hall, right?
Detention.
You think about, we think about all these, like, if I go to school and I start a fight, right? I was told I can't do that. If I go to school and I skip the line, I was told I can't do that. Right? I go to school and I say, you know, I want to color outside the line. I was told I can't do that.
Right.
I go to school and I speak out of turn. I was told I can't do that. So I was being told how to be me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been drilled into you since
so you are still in a role. So these roles are not yours. You didn't create your own role. Someone else created for you.
Yeah, I agree.
So you are right now, whoever you are, if you are alive, you are playing a role.
Right.
Whether that role is something you want or not, it's by chance. And chances are it's not.
Yep.
What you want. So that means you have to be able to transitions into the role that you want. So you have to method act into it, because you can't just say, I'm going to start, you know, I'm going to, I mean, how can you go into from one role to another role? You have to know how to act as another role. Exactly. If you want to be a beaver, or you want to be a writer, a painter, right? Then you got to think about, you know, what is imagine yourself, put yourself in the shoes of a painter.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you gotta do it.
You got to method act whether you know it or not. And if you know the method, then I think it's easier and faster for you to become that role. But if you don't, then you do it by trial and error. But eventually if you make it to the other role, transitioning from this role to the other role, you will have to method act in one way or another.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. I mean, you like, there's no other option really. Like, I just would take away the word act. Like, I mean, well, no, I guess no, it is right. Like, it's the the big difference for me is like when I'm thinking about this, I keep thinking of it like in the actor sense where they're pretending to be somebody that they're not. Like that's not what we're talking about, obviously. It is in their
But
case,
I think
but
it does at some level, because you're not there yet. So
right.
you have to know, how would I act? How would I, if I'm not that person and I want to become that person? Let's say you have a role, you have a movie role, and the movie role say, hey, you're this entrepreneur, or you're this beaver being, right?
Right.
How would you behave so that people believe you are a beaver? How would you behave so that you believe you are an entrepreneur? So you have to act.
Yeah.
So I think acting is still a valid word in this context.
Do you remember Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights book? I know you read that one, right? You remember when he used to always say, you know, I got to find my man. He said that like all the time about like when he would get a new character, he was like, I got to find my man, you know, or whatever. Like, and he would like he'd have to really invent somebody. Like what do they care about? What do they do? What's what's important to them? What's not?
Yeah,
you know,
Matthew McConaughey did method acting as well.
All the time. I mean, that's when he did his, you know, all right guy. He was just sitting around thinking like, what would this dude say? You know, like, and like, that's what came to him spontaneously. It was like, you know what I love about them high school girls? Like, you know, like that wasn't him speaking. It was the character.
Was it a character?
Yeah. Right.
Right. And so I think it applies in real life as well, because if you want to be that person, you want to be
you were about to say, Beaver?
I was waiting for you to finish that. But like I said, if you want to be be somebody, you have to first act that role in order for you to become. You cannot just automatically just become. It's not possible. There's a transition period, and acting is that bridge. So I don't see how you can take the word act away.
So the fun thing about, you know, Amelia, not fun, but I mean the interesting thing about Amelia is like endurance and enduring was not a value that I even remotely held ever. Like, I mean, I was a sprinter. Like, I was a straight sprinter. Like like you wouldn't ever catch me running longer than a mile. And if I did, like, it was because somebody like literally
chase you,
chasing me, or something like that. Like, I mean, but I ran all the time, but I sprinted. Like, I mean, I would go as fast as I could in everything that I did in life. Like Amelia is she's an endurance.
She's a cross country runner.
She's a marathon runner. I mean, she's like, and enduring is one of my core values now, right? Like, I mean, like what we talked about, like when I think of myself, I run every day. I mean, every damn day of my life, I run now distances, you know, long distance.
I mean, this is what you do as well, because you're asking yourself, what would Amelia do? You are method acting.
It's I mean, that was literally how I got out of bed the first day, you know, and every day after that. I mean, it wasn't, she's a part of me at this point in time and how she lived her life. And I'm damn proud to have adopted, you know, her values and helped me to mold them with Chris before, with now Chris afterwards, so we can, you know, live a life together, which is what I call living for two. I mean, that's literally what it is, you know. And that's what I think about every single day. It's like, it's not me doing this stuff, it's us doing this stuff. Because that's how I get to connect with her, and that's how I get to still think to, you know, do stuff with her in my life, you know. And so I mean, you do,
because the thing is, that's how you inherit some of her core values, because enduring wasn't your value, but you ask yourself, what would Amelia do? And then you basically, if I were Amelia, what would I do? Right? You basically become her, method act as her role, and you take on her values.
100%.
That's right. Enduring becomes your value as well.
I mean, you see that all the time with Jesus Christ, right? You know, I mean, like, hell, there's the you know, the what would WWJD, like, what would Jesus do? I mean, like, you get taught your
I mean, it changes your behavior. You think about it.
I mean,
if you ask what would Jesus do, it changes the behavior, because you know how Jesus would behave. Jesus wouldn't go and bang somebody over the head,
right?
With a baseball bat, right? So you wouldn't do it, because you method act into his particular characteristic.
We do that in church every day. I mean, you get taught that your entire life. I mean, that's a part of our being, of like, how do you think about what would Jesus do, or what, see God in everyone, right? Like, and what does that mean, and I mean, yeah, I mean, it's just really interesting to think about how much we can train our elephants, and if you put it toward a good positive thing, it can be great. If you put it toward a negative thing, you could become Heath Ledger. But here's the fun thing: is you can always, like, I wish if any actor out there ever tries to like legit method acted, like, my advice to them would be, make sure that your core values of who you want to be are rock solid, so you can always have that compass to get back to who you were, because like that would
otherwise you're going into the Inception concept.
Yeah, pretty much. Then you're gonna be like, who the hell was Will Smith,
which is up, which is down, which is real, which is fake, right? Which is a dream.
Like, yeah, that's the
dream within a dream within a dream.
Yeah, spend your top, right? To get back to, that's your core values, right? Your actual core values. That's your top you got to spend to get back into reality after method acting.
Yeah,
so,
you need that breadcrumbs, or you need some kind of a string attached to the cornerstone of where you need to get back to.
Right.
If you don't, you get lost. And the thing is, like people say, if you lie yourself long enough, eventually you will believe your own lie.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so method acting and pretending to becoming one person long enough, your conscious will think it's real.
It is real.
And
it is real.
Good and bad, right? The good thing is you can use it to become somebody good, somebody who you want to be. And the bad thing is if you become a person without your own conscious of it, then you can turn into this, bad person. You let somebody else's write your own story. Right.
You find yourself yelling at a waiter and, some bougie New York City restaurant, and you're like, crying about your sparkling water wasn't, crisp enough or something. I don't know. Like, and all of a sudden you like look up and you're like, what the hell am I talking about? Like, this isn't who I want to be, like, and like, yeah. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent now. All right. I know we're probably past time because we did an activity beforehand today. So any final thoughts?
So I would say, to drive the point home, instead of asking what would Jesus do, ask what would the real me do?
What is the you that you
what
want
would I do? What would I as in the person you want to become do?
Now you're getting into like really deep talk where I call that God, actually, because then you're just talking to God. Like, I mean, I don't want to call
aren't you part of God and God part of you?
Yeah, no, you are. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is when you like this could be a rabbit hole topic to go down for a very, very long time, because I truly believe that, like, when I'm talking to myself, I'm not just talking to myself. I could talk to somebody else in my own head, but it's me, but it's also God, but it's also whatever I want it to be, really, to be able to reflect those ideas back to each other and to help guide each other. Anyway, we can
like I say, agree. Yeah. All we have to do is, figure out who you want to be and pretend to be that person until you become that person.
Agreed. That's it. It's that easy.
That's it. Yeah, you don't need to go down no rabbit hole.
Awesome. So the question we can leave for everybody then is, how can you leverage values to method act like the person you want to be to impact your life? Something to think about. It's a valuable lesson, I thought.
Simple enough.
Yeah, glad we talked about it, and we will see you tomorrow night.
Yeah, sounds good. Good night.